There is a legend of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent, featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. Okay, so let me set this up for you guys. This is Brad Pitt talking about his best childhood movie moment.
I remember seeing a film called The Gargantuas, I believe. And it was the good Gargantua and the bad Gargantua. At the end of it, the good Gargantua had to sacrifice himself to defeat the bad Gargantua and rid the world of evil.
All right, here's Devo, many years before this movie came out on video. Here's Tim Burton talking about his family.
It's my 2-year-old daughter's favorite movie. She's obsessed with it. She's the green Gargantua, and my other son is the brown one, and she loves being the bad green Gargantua. I mean, she's obsessed with it, and as I was.
And then here's a Scooby-Doo episode from about 10 years ago.
If my lips could only say the pretty words that I feel in my heart. If my voice could make a sound, I would tell you how I love you and we'd never be apart.
Wow.
I could go on. Quentin Tarantino calls it the perfect giant monster movie. It was the inspiration for a scene in Crank, High Voltage. Yes, today we were talking about War of the Gargantuas, a movie that somehow remains in total obscurity and has a cultural legacy at the same time.
Yeah, wow. I had no idea, especially that song, that's what they're all sticking on to. Also the Brad Pitt masterclass talking about it.
It's pretty amazing. After a long wait, we finally have my dear father on the show, who was the person to introduce me to Godzilla.
Thank you for having me. I've been waiting a long time. I was telling Ryan that I introduced him to Godzilla, and my first opportunity to be on the show is, of course, for a non-Godzilla movie. But this movie is very meaningful to both Ryan and me because this is the only kaiju movie I've ever seen running first run in a theater. So I am a direct connection to the original release of this.
That's right. I'm sure we'll get into specific memories as we go on, but can you set up what it was like to be a kaiju fan at the time and just get excited to go to the movie and then experience it?
Yes. It all started when I was at my uncle's house, my dad's twin brother, and we were watching TV and King Kong versus Godzilla came on. And I vividly remember the scene where King Kong is dropped from the helicopter and slides down the side of the mountain. And on the way home from my uncle's house, and he was with us, there's a hillside in Morgantown, West Virginia, where the hillside had a landslide, I guess, and it was all flat and smooth as if something had slid down. And he said, that's where King Kong slid down the side of the hill. And I absolutely believed it to the point of where even into my early teens, as I would drive by that spot, I would look at it and I wonder what caused that. Did Kong do that? So it started there. And from that point on, I was hooked on every kaiju movie, every Godzilla movie, and had a huge impact on my outlook on entertainment. And of course, when Ryan was born, as soon as he was ready, we introduced it to him. And I was so glad that it's joined us together, clearly up till now. He might not talk to me tomorrow, but as of now, we're joined because of Godzilla.
I'm going to tear up.
I was going to say, Joanna, do you want to use your trademark? That's precious.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
You know, I only just realized, Joanna, you have precious and tender. Because tender is the other one. I definitely feel like you've said. So we have two words for this bond between father and son.
Wow, yes, they would both apply in this circumstance, I can definitely say. Ryan, I want to get a little, like, did you always know that this was specifically the first film you wanted to bring him on as for our guest?
No, it started with King Kong. He saw King Kong and he loved King Kong. And I started buying him some King Kong toys. And I happened to mention that King Kong versus Godzilla had King Kong in it. And so he was very excited about seeing King Kong in this movie. So we watched that. After that movie, he only wanted to talk about Godzilla.
For the rest of his life.
Godzilla, in one movie, swept away King Kong forever.
You're slightly misremembering it. We were going to rent it, and the video store didn't have it. And so you said, you'll like this one too. And you got King Kong versus Godzilla instead.
I thought we had seen the original Kong together, but I think you might be right.
I didn't see that till after.
It's kind of like when I was 13 and really wanted to see Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and went to the video store and they didn't have the Alfred Hitchcock one, but they did have the shot-for-shot remake that the director of Good Will Hunting did. And it's not the same.
No, not at all.
Exactly the same thing, guys. We're really similar.
Same space.
On similar.
Yeah, same space.
But yeah, War of the Gargantuas, made in 1966 and released after a long delay in 1970 in the US, where it was a double feature with Godzilla versus Monster Zero. But you say you didn't see Monster Zero in the theater that day.
No. In fact, I remember not really knowing what this movie was or why I should go, but my dad, because he was a firefighter, got free entry into all theaters in town, and he was going to take me. And what made me go was, he said, they're giving out a free monster with every admission. And so, of course, I was in. And so I got to the theater with my dad, and they still have these today. If you go to some cheap, what we called a dime store back in the day, but a place where you sell a lot of little cheap things. It was a little rubber monster that fit on the end of your finger, with little arms coming out, and it was red with big teeth. And they gave that to me, and I put that in my finger. I had that rubber monster until my high school years, and I don't know where it is now, but that's what I remember first about going to see the movie and why I went.
I mean, that's the reason I read the Harry Potter books, is because they were making Harry Potter Legos. So.
Also, Ryan, for those clips you just shared with us,
Yeah.
have you known those for years, or did those just pop up when you like Googled celebs chatting about? How did you find those? Or were you just on a rabbit hole because you were like, I love this movie. Let me see who else loves it too.
I think I've learned about them gradually over time. I knew for a long time that Tim Burton really loved it, Quentin Tarantino, but I didn't find out about the Scooby-Doo episode until a few years ago, or the Brad Pitt thing. Just gradually over time, I came aware like, whoa, like this weird little movie that no one knows just has like this long tail cultural impact in weird niches. As you guys saw, because you watched essentially the Japanese version, this movie has no direct ties to Godzilla, but it has a very fuzzy and confusing connection to another Toho movie called Frankenstein Conquers the World, which did indeed feature a giant Frankenstein. Do you want to know the origin for that monster?
Yes, because I was confused as to why they were called Frankenstein.
Frankenstein looks very different.
So it was created when the original monster, as in like the Frankenstein's monster's heart, was shipped from Nazi Germany to Imperial Japan for experiments. But it just happened to be shipped to Hiroshima, where the atomic bomb dropped on it. And then it was eaten by a starving orphan who somehow mutated into a giant Frankenstein monster.
Why didn't we watch this one? That's awesome. I mean, not that this one wasn't awesome, but that's awesome.
We want to watch that one next.
Maybe someday we should. I've never actually seen it. I figured, we were already watching, as you guys like to say, 500 movies.
700. No, I'm kidding.
It did pretty well, so they made this follow-up, but the continuity is all garbled. Essentially, the idea is that Sanda and Gyra are descended from that monster in some way, but it doesn't really make sense, which is why good old Hank Saperstein, when he brought this to the US, he actually co-produced it, which is why there's a white guy in it. But anyway, he co-produced it and brought it to the US, and he took out all the Frankenstein references and just called them the Gargantuas. The story is otherwise pretty much the same, but it's edited very differently. It's a much snappier movie, in my opinion, and a little bit more explicit. We see a scene of Gyrus like spitting the remains of a woman out of his mouth at one point.
Yeah, I was gonna say they like hid a lot of that, and I'm used to some of the more gruesomeness of Kong as of late. You say the US one is snappier, like the redone version?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit longer, but I watched a few scenes and I was like, oh, they really like punched this up with like more sound effects, and they cut scenes differently.
Got it.
Yeah, that was my takeaway watching the English dub of the Japanese one. I don't know what I think it's called the international version.
Yes, that's basically.
I liked it. It was a little ponderous, especially in the middle. I found that especially the scene right before the brown one shows up when they're in the forest. I was like, boy, we're in the forest for a long time.
We're doing a lot of battle setup.
But still liked it for the record. It wasn't a complete waste. I still enjoyed the movie. Someday I'll watch the American version now.
Tipping your hand, but good. I'm glad we're all in a warm, fuzzy place for this memory-filled movie. Do we have any general thoughts before we go to the synopsis?
General thoughts would just be monster costume design throughout. Hilarious. I would have just wanted to see more of the baby.
Oh boy.
Terrifying. Just like a small human in that terrifying suit.
We'll get to that.
You know, it's one thing when it's just sitting there. It's another thing when it's eating. You're like, I don't know.
When it's drinking milk. When it's just drinking from a milk carton.
You're right. It was drinking. It's even worse. Drinking milk is even somehow worse. You're right. That's what it was. But yeah, there's like that pushes it into Uncanny Valley in like a very disturbing way for me. I think actually to your point, Joanna, I feel like because Gargantuas are so human-like, you know, like that they're big apes. I feel like the translation from like man in a suit translation, you're willing to like give a little bit of a, I don't know, it feels more real. That's what I'd say. Like you're like, oh yes, of course, that is how it would move because it's a guy in a suit, and a guy in a suit would move like a giant ape would. I was kind of convinced by it a lot of times. I kept having to remind myself that this was not a documentary.
Yeah.
Hard-hitting documentary. Dad, your general thoughts seeing it after many years later?
I have this monologue that I thought about that I won't do entirely here, but when I watched it, and it's been about maybe the 7th or 8th time I've seen it since I was 6, but I now look at it through 2 different minds. I discovered that there was the 6-year-old memories of this and the impressions and how I took the story then that I sort of remember, and then how I look at it now from my age now. And it's 2 different movies to me. Both of them are very, very meaningful and very actually, very impressed with the movie despite its flaws. Both ages of me see really amazing parts of this movie. And so I think as I add commentary today, you may hear the 6-year-old me talking, or you might hear the 50-plus-year-old me talking. We'll see which one comes out. But that's how I saw it. It really had the things I loved about it when I was 6. I didn't even register now. Things I loved about it now when I was 6. Actually, those same things registered when I was 6. So I guess I've grown up.
All right. And on that somber note, we'll go to the synopsis. So, sound effects at the ready. Dad, feel free to sound effect in. On a stormy night, a ship is attacked by a giant octopus.
Captain!
Thank you. Which is repelled by a monstrous green giant. The giant is no hero, though, as it eats all but one of the boat's crew. The survivor reports the monster attack, which the press blames on a gargantua that escaped from a nearby lab. The lab is run by doctors Paul Stewart, Akemi Togawa, and Yuzo Majida, who raised the brown gargantua Sanda until it escaped about a year ago. Seeking to prove their gentle monster wouldn't hurt anyone, the scientists investigate. After some searching and additional attacks by the green monster, they conclude there are 2 gargantuas. Meanwhile, the military creates a plan to trap and kill the green gargantua Gyra using masers. They nearly succeed, but the helpless creature is rescued by Sanda. As Sanda nurses Gyra back to health, both the scientists and the military search for the Gargantuas. Sanda saves Akemi when she slips while out hiking or something. I don't actually remember why she fell. And injures his leg.
I think she was running from him, but then he saved her.
When he returns to Gyra, he discovers that his green brother has eaten a group of hikers. Enraged, Sanda attacks Gyra and drives him into the ocean. Despite the pleas of the scientists, the military vow to kill both Gargantuas. They get their chance when Gyra comes to Tokyo with Sanda in pursuit. Akemi makes an attempt to save Sanda, but is instead captured by Gyra. The gentle Sanda pleads with Gyra to stop the attack, saving Akemi, but the evil Gargantua begins battling his brother. They brawl throughout Tokyo before ending up in the water, pursued by the military the whole time. Bombs open up an underwater volcano, which swallows up the dueling Gargantuas. I was hoping for dramatic volcano sounds, but frankly, that works just as well.
It was kind of a sputtering volcano. It was mostly underwater, you know?
I heard swallow up.
Sam, since you kind of mentioned it, I'll start out on the complimentary note that the effects in this movie tend to be a little bit better. I'm guessing because of the extra money. Because Toho didn't usually allow the team enough time to like do proper compositions. So I'm like, Toho is kind of famous for these very fuzzy looking comp shots that we've seen in all these movies, but there's actually good ones in this. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
It really looks like the people are swimming away from Gyra.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those wide shots early on where I'm never going to get the two names right, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. You could just say brown and green one.
I plan to.
It's Sanda and Gyra, and I did some research ahead of this, and it translates to surf and turf in Japanese.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's the best factoid I've heard in a long time.
Well, Ryan said I was allowed one dad joke today.
Yeah, some of those wide shots of the green one showing up kind of in the distance, like really sell the size, look really good. He's kind of like appropriately washed out because he's farther away from us, stuff like that. That would, I think that sells scale and distance really well. That I don't think we've seen as much in a lot of these 60s ones. Really worked. And again, I think I kind of said it earlier, but I feel like this one, just on a very base level, pushed over the boundary of believability in a good way a lot of times. And so I found myself kind of getting just like lost in the story at times. Not the entire time, of course, but sometimes.
That's still a high compliment for you.
When I was like looking up, where to watch it, kept popping up as like a horror film was what I kept seeing come up with it. And I feel like I thought that octopus too at the beginning looked great. Like that scene in the ship, it actually was pretty terrifying. And I feel like, yeah, maybe something about the humanness of the monster. When he first came out of the water and his hair was all wet, he looked a little bit like a hairy hippie, like he could be an Almost Famous from far away or something, just seeing his long hair. But then as he was kind of going, it instilled creepiness in a way that hasn't successfully been done in some of the others because of the good work they were doing with the costuming, I guess. But I did find it hilarious in the scene when that light is coming at him. For a second I was like, is this what's that monster that comes from space? You know the one, Ryan? Ghidorah, right? Who would be flying in from the sky?
There's a few. You're probably thinking of Ghidorah.
Okay, but I was like, whoa, hold up. Are we about to have a mashup here? But it didn't happen. It was just like, but when he ran though, and he jumped into the water, like you could so tell that it was like a dude in a suit, just like trying to fumble. I thought it was hilarious. I loved it. So that took away from the horror for me, but up until that point, pretty scary.
Dad, do you want to talk about your visceral memories of being scared by the opening scenes?
I'm going to speak as 6-year-old me without speaking like a 6-year-old.
Yeah, please don't.
It was very frightening when I saw it. Just like Joanna described, it is, of course, by now I've seen hundreds of horror movies, and I can't think of one that scared me any more than this movie, especially the beginning. The introduction fighting the octopus, the swimming after the sailors was so visceral to me that it was terrifying. And soon enough, there's a scene when Gyra is looking up at the fisherman from underwater.
Yeah.
And terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I thought, I was over that, but when I watched it again, it still is very scary. It's very creepy. And I can't think of a movie that creeps me out any more than that. And so that is amazing. And the effects are so good to make that happen that I put it at the top of any kaiju movie I've seen as far as great effects.
I love it. You were watching this at age 6. I was watching it with Pennywise at age 8. And then that like haunted me for like 10 years of my life.
It always sticks with you. Like Natalia was really afraid of the Mars Attacks Martians because she saw it when she was like way too young and she thought it was a serious like horror movie. And I showed it again to her recently. And she's like, "What? No, it wasn't like this."
Something about like that shot of him just pushing the ship over like really pissed me off. Like I was like, this guy fucking sucks. What a jerk. I hate this guy. And I was like, why am I so roilingly mad at this monster 5 minutes into a movie? But I was like, good for that. Yeah, I was like, this guy sucks. He's got to die 5 minutes in. Like, what a weird visceral reaction I had.
I kind of get it though.
Well, we're constantly playing in this space of like the monster is friend. No, they're not the friend. No, they are the friend. No, they are. So I think I didn't know where we're going to land. And sure enough, we landed at their friend and they're the enemy by the end of this one.
Yeah.
The 6-year-old me and the current me also thinks about how frightening it was because of what Sam said. The humanness of the monster played by a human and the physicality of it really captures me now. I don't know much about the craft that they use to film these, but it seems like they slow it down just enough that they're moving like big things, but they're not moving like Godzilla where they're lumbering. And to me, it feels real and different. And so that really is one of the reasons I get immersed in this one, I think, is because of the human-like aspects of the monster and how quickly they move and how violently they move.
Yeah, you guys are just blazing through my first 3 points. But yeah, I think Gyra is the green one is kind of viscerally creepy. And yeah, that shot revealing him from under the water is legitimately scary in execution.
And when he looks up after Sanda, what is it? Sandy?
Sanda is the brand.
After he finds him having ripped all the hiker clothes, and they show that shot, and he's like on the ground, haggard, and he's like ripped up. He still looks pretty spooky.
Yeah, he looks fat and happy after eating all those people, which rolls into my next point, which is that the Gargantuas have a lot of character. In fact, Haru Nakajima, who played Godzilla, he plays Gyra in this movie, and he said this was his second favorite role after Godzilla because he could be more expressive, he could use his eyes, and it gave him a chance to play such a nasty, evil character. But yeah, they really they're very emotive, especially that scene you just talked about where he finds him like all full of hikers and he just beats him over the head with the tree.
That is like a funny story point to me. I can't exactly express why it's funny that they're friends until one of them discovers the other one has been eating people.
Yeah.
There's like that's such a human ethics thing. Like I can't imagine. I feel like a Gargantua or a Frankenstein would be like, I don't do it, but like, I mean, it's the nature of the Gargantuas to eat people. It's just so funny that it's like, no, we all agree as Gargantuan morals go is wrong to eat people, and for that you must die. Like, it's very funny to me.
Right. It was like watching Twilight. It was like, we won't have human blood. But I think also it was funny because I was like, there's just no way this guy didn't have a clue that he was eating humans at all before this. Like, there's no way that he didn't know.
Like, he at least had a suspicion. His brother was clearly a douchebag.
Yeah, he just wanted to give his brother the benefit of the doubt. He couldn't believe it until the evidence was right in front of him.
But then what is the good guy eating? Is the good guy just fully vegetarian?
There's no way.
Or he's drinking his milk and eating his lettuce, I guess.
Yeah, we've seen him have milk, so he at least is not vegan.
You're right. It should be more of a friendly debate between a vegetarian and a meat eater.
Yeah, because he has to be fully vegetarian. If he isn't eating, like, if he's eating other animals, I feel like other animals to a Gargantua are the same as a person, as a person. They're just, people are other animals to a Gargantua. I'm just saying he better be vegetarian, or else he's a total hypocrite.
I think the quote-unquote real explanation is, Dr. Akemi is his mommy figure, and you don't want people to eat your mom. It's just disturbing. So he couldn't cope with that. But yeah, speaking of the human characters, you've got Russ Tamblyn in this movie looking so disaffected and bored in just about every scene.
Yeah, so bored. All his lines were like, well, we'll see when we see.
The whole time I was waiting for him to do something acrobatic. Like, it felt like that's like why you'd have him in this movie. I was like, oh, when he started climbing down the hillside, I was like, oh boy, here we go. He's going to do something awesome. And it's like, no, he just kind of gingerly steps down some rocks. I mean, that was his whole thing, was like I guess he was a little older here, but like he was like a gymnast and dancer. And so I was just waiting. I was like, I mean, he's not in this for the acting.
Have we seen him before or no?
No, this is his first and only kaiju movie.
But you may know him for being the first person to sing the "When You're a Jet" song from West Side Story.
Wow. Okay. All right. It's all coming back. All right. This all makes sense now.
He's also in The Haunting, which I like him in that. But here, yeah, they hired him to replace Nick Adams because he was a little younger and hotter in the Hollywood scene, but man, he is no Nick Adams. And both Ishiro Honda and Hank Saperstein really hated him. They said he was a huge pain in the ass for the whole shoot, like constantly changing his lines and disrespecting everybody. And they just could not wait to get rid of him.
I was going to say the chemistry between him and Akira, it was just strange, weird relationship.
It didn't help in our version that he was dubbed in English, but clearly not saying the same stuff and with a very like deep, dull voice.
Yeah, it's not him. Somebody else dubbed him in the version you guys Yeah, the story is really pretty much entirely on the Gargantuas, or at least the interesting parts are. As a kid, did you have any reaction to the human cast at all, Dad?
It's the same. If it weren't for us talking about Russ Tamblyn, there'd be nothing to discuss about the human characters. Maybe with the exception that Kenji Sahara is in there and that I happened to meet him at a convention one year. Otherwise, as a kid, I didn't care. And as an adult, I don't care.
Yeah, Kenji Sahara, nice guy. But yeah, he's filling the role that Akihito Hirata is typically played, where he's just boring scientist who explains things. This is the most aggressive and guilt-tripping group of reporters in one of these movies. Yeah. Like, the press is normally so upstanding in Godzilla movies, a heroic force, but here they're kind of sleazy, just constantly getting in the scientists' faces.
At the same time, though, Russ Tamblyn was taking no responsibility. Like, I think about my day job, and I'm like, I mess up one little thing, and I have to be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I did that. Just so everyone knows, like, I apologize, and I just feel like I have to play the grievances. They kept being like, do you feel bad that this, like, you know, this was kind of his team's responsibility. And he just kept being like, well, again, just, we'll see what we see, and that's that. Like, he did not give a fuck.
Joanna, I think what you don't understand is that in the 50s, being a white guy meant never having to say you're sorry.
How could I forget? God damn it.
You make a good point, but they disparage the poor brown Gargantua who didn't do nothing. Which reminds me of one of my favorite bizarre lines in this movie, which is when the old scientist who hangs out with them sometimes is like, well, we could talk to the United Nations, and I'm sure they could find a home for him in Canada or Siberia. They would be happy to have him. And I was like, what?
Or Russia. That was the line that the guy came in with this like accent from the Bronx, and he was like, well, I could talk to... And I was like, what is happening? It's also strange watching these movies because of the timing. When Russ Tamblyn is like, oh, well, in the last war, when Germany was about to invade Paris, everyone was dying. It's just, like, strange to hear it in that context of such a close, not like in World War II. He's like, in the last war.
Wasn't that long ago at the time.
Also, can we talk about the song?
Definitely. Classic, iconic scene.
Like, is she a good singer?
I don't think so.
Really, really pretty bad. Cute dress. But they just have so many shots of everyone watching, nodding and going, oh yeah, this girl, she really has got the pipes. She really can sing. And she kept belting high notes. Like, it wasn't like the song would maybe have one belt, and it was like the chorus, the verse, the bridge, all were belting. It's like, this might never end.
The words got stuck in her throat.
The purpose of the performance, or I guess connected to the performance, is that the lights go out, right? Like, that's part of the number, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like Gargantua bait, if there ever was one. That was very funny. I was like, oh, the lights are going out, something's wrong. And it's like, no, that's the performance. It's very funny to me.
Maybe the band got sick of her and they're like, all right, let's see what happens.
The words get stuck in my... Was this a song that was just for the movie?
Yes, it's only in this movie. It's incredibly bizarre, and which is why I guess it was so well remembered by Devo that they could... I don't know if maybe they got a hold of the print of the film or something, but otherwise they would have had to just remember the lyrics, which is crazy. There's something weirdly captivating about that scene, despite her bad singing. And I think a lot of people misremember her as getting eaten by Gyra, and I did. I thought she did, which I think would have made the scene better. I'm not sure why she wasn't.
The voice was bad enough, but I actually listened to the lyrics carefully, and there's some really odd things in those lyrics. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go look those up and read them thoroughly, because I don't know what kind of fever dream somebody was having when they wrote that, but it was very strange. Maybe it's a song from the times, but it was very, very odd all around. And I too thought she was going to get eaten. I couldn't remember, and I was preparing a one-liner for today. Would be something like, if Gyra had eaten her, he would have spit out her clothes and her vocal cords. And that line would have landed just as well as it did now. That if I had said it.
That's, I don't know why, but the image of someone spitting out bloody vocal cords is really haunting. So thank you. That's awful.
Yeah. I also was going to say, like, I almost think, because she came back to life, but if she had just been dead on the ground, that would have been... Now I'm realizing, normally the gore, I'm like, ugh, but this movie, because we didn't get any of it, I am a little like, come on, where was it, you know?
I mean, it is definitely one of the bloodier movies. There's such a horror bent to it. You kind of wish it would go farther.
2 women were dropped from great height in this movie and did not die. I found that very curious.
Tokyo had a rubber in all its concrete at the time. It was a quirk of construction.
I was just reading the words of, if I had a little Viewmaster stuck inside my brain, if I had a telegraph tapping in my brain, it would tap the Morse code, I love you. Just like weird.
That's awesome.
Another scene that people really love, and you guys talked about going on very long, is the scene with the fan favorite weapon of the masers, the monster lasers, which are those
yeah, amazing.
blue zappy things.
The 6-year-old me found it fascinating for a variety of reasons, but also at that age I noticed how it was articulated. It had multiple pivots. This is very geeky, but multiple pivots on the laser, and then as I watched it, I was still fascinated by the model itself, how it could move up and pivot and swivel, and yeah, I think that's how I came to love the Maser. Although in the version I saw, they called it the Mark 15 laser, which I don't know why, but I always knew it to be the Maser.
I think it's a reference to the chapter of the Bible, Mark 15.
Right. So it's a religious parable.
I can go ahead and ask my mom if I have to.
I to your point about the model work, I feel like pretty by quite a large margin, this is the best miniature vehicle work of any of these movies. Like I felt like oftentimes in a lot of even the contemporary mid-60s Godzilla movies, it's like we'll just cut to some shots of some toy cars going along a little miniature countryside. But I thought what was great was there were some wide shots where I was like, wow, these miniatures are, oh no, those are real cars. They actually have 12, trucks. And then the miniature work of the lasers coming out and all that, completely agree. I thought that was really nice. It was really good and really cool.
As a surprisingly quantifiable reason, which is that the Gargantuas are much smaller than Godzilla. So when you can build the models with more detail because they're at a larger scale compared to the monsters. Yeah, you can see it.
There's a scene where a gargantuan is stepping on cars, and they crumple. They don't shatter like a toy. They actually crumple like it's real sheet metal under their feet. I found that fascinating. And also, when the masers would fire in the scene in the woods, it would cut the trees in half, which I found to be absolutely real. It was really, really cool effect.
That's a cool scene, and it was so good that they kept stealing it, and it's reused in Godzilla vs. Gigan and Godzilla vs. Megalon, because any vaguely green monster could crawl behind a group of trees, and then they would use that shot.
So last thing about the maser, do they actually have an effect on the Gargantuas? Because it seems like they bring those out a lot, and they don't really do a lot. I mean, they I guess they irritate them, but like, do the Gargantuas really care if they're getting masered?
Well, it looks like Gyra gets all bloodied up by them, and he's on like death's door until Sanda saves him. So I think so.
Was that from the masers though?
I thought he was going down.
Was that from those?
Yeah, there was nothing else.
Oh, I thought that they blew him up with something.
He was in the water.
Oh, all right. Well, then I retract my question.
Point to retract, dude.
In the first scene when they're firing on Gyra, did you all notice how his suit caught fire?
No, I don't think I saw
In
that.
the first battle scene, when they're firing the tanks and rifle or the cannons at him, his suit from the effects is actually burning, which I thought was the actor going all in on the scene. Because I don't know if I've seen a suit in a movie, other movie, where it was very close to becoming fully engulfed. I really thought that would they wouldn't do that sort of thing, but it was burning.
You know, I don't remember that.
Full-on method acting there.
You think that was the actor's idea? The actor's like, all right, this time I'm lighting myself on fire. We're going to get this. I really believe in this.
It was Jared Leto in the suit. No, Leonardo DiCaprio was like, listen, this will get me my Oscar. Fucking put me on fire. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, Leo. You think Leo brought the bear in The Revenant just for his Oscar? Like, that wasn't in the script. He's like, all right, I brought a bear. It's gonna. We're gonna just be doing a normal take about me just contemplating life, and this bear. I'm gonna let it loose. We're gonna see what happens. He's telling Brad Pitt about it on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he's like, "That's how I got my Oscar." And Brad Pitt's like, "Can you stop interrupting me? I'm watching War of the Gargantuas, my favorite movie."
I'd like to believe that on every set between takes, Brad Pitt refuses to talk to anyone. He's just watching War of the Gargantuas on loop.
He's just huddled in his trailer with his back to the door, just huddled watching a little tiny TV screen.
The way he speaks about it, he sounds like he just came from like Bible camp. He's like, he had to sacrifice himself to save humanity. I'm like, wow, that's like not what I took away from the ending. But like, I mean, I guess it's totally there, but I just like wasn't as serious about it.
He believed in it. He was there in the moment. Speaking of which, what do we think about the very sudden flash in the pan volcano ending?
Cop out.
Fair enough.
I mean, come on, they're trying all these things. They're setting up, oh, it's going to be a battle between the two monsters. It's called the war between the two of them. And then at the end, here's my main thing. Were they guided towards that volcano? That's why. It wasn't a part of the plot. Didn't they just accidentally they must have gone out to sea. They happened to be next to it? Like, that's what made me feel like a cop-out.
It definitely is like, what? Like, I guess the implication is that the bombs they were dropping opened it up, but still, it's like, oh, we just happened to drop those on an underwater fault line.
Okay, I guess I didn't fully make that connection, because I was a little, like, when the volcano suddenly came, I was like, oh, it seems like they were like, the script coordinator was like, and we've reached 90 minutes of, our film will now be 90 minutes, and we must call the ending for it. So abrupt.
The same, yeah. And I remember as a 6-year-old me, it was, where did that come from? I was in a way relieved to see the mean, evil green thing that was going to haunt me for the next 56 years was being destroyed. But I don't know where it came from. Didn't know where it came from then, and I don't know where it came from now. It really did feel like a cop-out that they just ran out of. They had already set in the plot that if they blow up these monsters, that their cells will regenerate as a million others. And I think they needed a way to say, well, they're all gone for good. And
How did that ending play in the theater?
Saturday Night Live skit that had no good ending, so they
at
just
age 6
say something stupid and it ends. It was very much a non sequitur, but I still didn't care at 6.
I will say there is a slight improvement in the American version, because in the Japanese version, Akemi just lies there silent when she hears about what happened. But in the American version, she's like, I pray that somehow the brown Gargantua survived, which at least gives you like some emotional note, I guess.
And it gives them room for a new one if they want to create it.
Right.
So in college, Joanna, I edited a film that Ryan wrote and directed, and it was like our junior year film, and he shot it on was it 16 millimeter? I think it was 16, right?
Yeah, 16 millimeter.
And we literally ran out of film shooting the ending of the film. And so we made a cop-out ending in edit where the film rolls out right before like the big emotional payoff, and then during the end credits, it's just the voices of the fictional director and editor of the movie arguing about how bad that ending was.
Yeah.
So it happens. That's basically, I think that's what happened here. That was our volcano ending.
Wow, that's it. How did it go over in class?
I don't remember.
It made a lot of people angry, actually, the people who worked on the movie. They thought we were insulting them, so we came up with a different voiceover for the ending, but then we changed it back to submit the festival.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on the volcano?
Pretty much exactly the same as yours. I'm like, wow, the movie just ended. Normally you have some kind of goodbye moment or optimistic final note, like with the fairies saying goodbye to Godzilla and Rodan, or like Godzilla jumping off the island just before it explodes and swimming away. But no, it's a real Game of Thrones ending. It just happens. It takes you by surprise. The Gargantuas are ostensibly a sequel to the Frankenstein story, but just as much, they owe a debt to a Japanese fairy tale. It's called like Blue Oni, Red Oni or something. And Onis are basically ogres in Japanese mythology. And it's told in a few different ways, but the idea is that they were both friends until a encounter with humans separated them forever. And I mention this because I think my biggest I wish is that I wish this movie played up the fantastical stuff more and wasn't as much dry science fiction, because I think all the strongest stuff in it is the creative imagery, stuff out of a nightmare or a fairy tale. He's even an ogre eating people. So I don't know, I'm finding it hard to describe specifics, but I wish they had played up more of the had been more bold and colorful with the whole thing.
It's almost like there were so many scenes that were for such a long period of time focused on the setup of fighting him, or he's running, okay, he's gonna get to the ocean, we gotta prep, and it would have been cooler because you could see more story behind the eyes of these monsters to have a bit more just focused on them and the background of what they're up to. Ryan, did you have any little stuffed animal toys of them growing up?
No, because it was very obscure. It didn't even come out in DVD until 2010 or something like that. And it did come out on VHS until 92, I think, or at least that's the first one I could find. So it always took a while for it to be reintroduced. I guess I could talk about this. This is interesting. In the late 70s, Hank Saperstein was trying to get Toho to make another Godzilla movie with him, and his big suggestion was Godzilla versus Gargantua. He wanted to see that. So that's been a big what if with Godzilla fans, and I think they finally did it in a comic book a few years ago. But otherwise, they've kind of just drifted along as this weird cultural island. Like I talked about at the beginning, they never had as much merchandise or attention as the other monsters.
This is something that Ryan and I have done since we started watching these movies together, where I know he knows the answer and I don't, but I found one of the aspects of Gyra, the green monster, to be frightening was his scream. The sound. I'm fascinated by how they do these different sounds. And Ryan, do you know how they did his? Because it was captivating and scary and still is.
I don't. I suspect it was a human noise slowed down. But yeah, that humanness of it makes it creepy. It's the same reason I'm creeped out by peacocks screaming. Anything that sounds uncanny valley like that. It's very
Oh my god.
creepy.
That's too funny.
Now we shall go to the judgments. As Godzillavangelists, it is our holy duty to assign each movie its proper place in Godzilla Heaven, Hell, or Purgatory, with Purgatory being in the middle between the two. Gargantuas. I've noticed I haven't gone first in a long time, so I'll go first. I'll take the hit. Now I might feel better about it if I had watched the whole American version, because I just watched some scenes just to confirm some stuff. But my overall takeaway was War of the Gargantuas was really cool, except when it wasn't. There were a lot of slow scenes, but unlike some of the other movies, I felt no pain powering through them. I was like able to focus in on the cool moments, and they would sustain me until we would get to another one. So I feel like technically this movie's just kind of okay, but I feel in my heart, I feel compelled to see the best in it. I really like the dark fantasy of the Gargantuas, and I think they bring a new flavor to these movies that we haven't seen before in a lot of different visual and story point ways. I will barely give this a heaven. It just makes it. I kind of want to make a fan edit though that trims it down, and I bet it would be more consistent. But for now, I will say a narrow but heartwarming heaven for me. Joanna, you want to go?
I'll go, yeah. First of all, I felt no pain powering through them. Hilarious. That's going to be my bar for any Godzilla moving forward. Yeah, I would just say, liked it, totally fine to watch, liked seeing these new monsters. And the, strange little baby monster scene, liked the bit more of the emotion you could see from them, but the human stories and the plot in general, there was just really nothing there, barely even a joke to go off of. And so I would just put it in Purgatory because I didn't hate it, but I don't know that it will stand out, because I don't have more of that sentimental tie to it. I like I feel like I'll remember the monsters from it, but I don't know that the film as a whole I'll have to see again, if that makes sense.
I totally get that. It's definitely, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and say, apart from the original, this is the most humorless of the movies we've watched. There is nary a wink to the audience.
Right. I kept being like, wow, what if the scientists had their own buddy comedy going on to tie back and parallel the two monsters fighting? Like, we had a regular, what's that roommate play? You know the one. The Odd Couple.
Odd Couple.
I just always want to see an Odd Couple relationship, and I thought that would have spiced the movie up a bit, but we didn't get to see it, unfortunately.
Now I want to see The Odd Couple starring Sanda and Gyra.
I know. Exactly.
Wait a minute.
Gyra, why are you leaving these clothes all over the room?
I was cleaning behind the toilet, and I found some human bones again. Gaia.
Yeah, exactly.
I was torn, but I feel like I was torn between Purgatory and Heaven for basically the same reasons you guys said, but I feel like I've been kind of nice on a lot of these Godzillas, giving them heavens, even though they were Purgatory movies to me, and I feel like this had cooler stuff than a lot of the ones.
Sentimental in his old age.
Yeah, you guys have broken me down. But no, I like this has cooler stuff in it than a lot of the Godzillas that I've kind of given heaven because I was not mad at them. So I'm putting this one in heaven too.
Jesus.
It's a heaven. There's too much good stuff.
Yeah, see, that's the bar. Because he didn't strongly feel pain, he didn't feel extended periods of pain watching it, so he has to throw it up in heaven.
If I'm going to put Godzilla King of the Monsters in Godzilla Heaven, then I got to put this in Godzilla Heaven. That's how I feel.
Sure. All right. Let's finish off Sergeant to Sergeant. What do you got, Dave?
Yes. the 6-year-old me would have put this completely in the pantheon of the best monster movies I've ever seen. And the 6-year-old me got the entire story. I was fascinated by the baby Sanda. I cared that Sanda had broken its leg and was going to try to help the humans, and that it was caring for its misguided Gyra, and that it was going to reform Gyra. That was my hope as a 6-year-old. And then when it was clear that Gyra was eating people, I felt vengeance. I felt the rage, and but at the same time sad that the friendship was breaking up. Everything captivated me that had to do with the two monsters. The humans did not matter, of course. The fear I felt of Gyra in the early scenes just riveted me. So, the 6-year-old me would say it's a top 2 or 3 kaiju movie. The older me is completely sustained by that 6-year-old, so I have to put this in heaven, but for not the same reasons. It's about the quality of the fear and the palpability of it, and Gyra still haunts me. That I can say that about so few movies, that it's got to be a heaven movie for that reason. But I don't even think about the other story anymore. I don't think it's silly, but nor do I find it compelling, which makes me sad that I lost that wonderment around Sanda. If Sanda was not even in the movie, I probably wouldn't notice now, actually. But I would watch it and give it big ratings just because of Gyra.
Well, yeah, I think that's an important perspective, though, is seeing these movies through a child's eye. And I think that, yeah, there is a fun, dramatic little story between the Gargantua brothers there. So, all right, a almost unanimous, but I don't blame you for Purgatory. It was almost there for me too. Let's wrap up with a very nice fan message. Today's message is from Lauren L. And they say, "Hello, Ryan, Sam, and Joanna. I've been a really big fan of your podcast for a while now, and discovered y'all when I started watching all the Godzilla films from the beginning a few years back. Thank you for bringing me so much joy and laughter every time I listen. And Ryan, I'm glad someone else loves Minya as much as I do. I even named one of my cats after him, as well as my other 2 cats, Mothra and Rodan.
Wow. I love that.
Again, thank you for all that you 3 do." I'm reversing her 2 PSs. So technically this is the second one, but she says PPS Team Joanna.
Nice.
And the first one is, "I've included the pumpkins I carved last Halloween of Godzilla and Mothra, which I'm going to show you guys."
Whoa, these are really
Whoa,
good.
hot damn. Those are good. That's great.
How?
Wow.
Have you tried to carve a pumpkin? It's like impossible.
Ryan, are you jealous? You gonna compete this Halloween?
I am so bad at pumpkin carving. I paint them instead. So yeah, this is really good work.
That Godzilla looks alive.
It does. It looks like when he appears in shadow form and Smog Monster in the background of the city. These look great, and thank you so much for your very nice message. And thank you, Dad, for joining us here today. It was really nice to have you here with your perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, can we ask if you have any good Ryan stories related to Godzilla? Like, I feel like we need some like little Godzilla fan Ryan moments.
Let's see. I was thinking about some of those before we did this. About 10 years ago, 15 years ago, had to be 15, we went to this convention where we met an illustrator who was great at drawing Godzilla characters. And he would do it very quickly and cheaply. And we commissioned a piece where they drew Godzilla with Minya riding on his back, piggyback, and standing on top of our house here, the family home. And we got the picture. It was wonderful. And before I showed it to Ryan, I told him that instead because Ryan and his sister would always pretend to be Godzilla and Minya. Ryan was Godzilla, Lauren was Minya, and Ryan would carry her around the house on his back, and they would do the voices for hours. And so I told him that when I got that the picture actually commissioned, had superimposed their faces on top of the bodies of Minya and Godzilla. And both the children were mortified by the thought. And I really wish I'd gone through with it, but to this day, it's merely a threat. But I think you all should know that there is a limit to what Ryan will actually do in the name of Godzilla. He will not let me superimpose his face on Godzilla, and Lauren will not let me superimpose her face on Minya. But one day I might actually do that.
Yeah, I think you have to do it.
Well, I guess I kind of did it for the podcast, huh? I guess.
Oh, that's right. You did actually years later. That's right. You embraced your greatest fear. Another thing is we were recently going through family memorabilia, and we had notebooks from Ryan at all ages. We're talking about elementary school, middle school, high school. And there are hundreds of sketches of Godzilla characters. And Ryan, even before he could draw even in a way that you'd recognize Godzilla fully, was drawing Godzilla with flames coming out, just page after page, and different aspects as he was trying to do it. It was clearly a passion, and I treasure them all. I went through all of them, just looking through. We sent you a few, Ryan. We took some pictures of the ones that we thought you'd want to see. But it's a national treasure, or family treasure.
I just envision a basement, just an entire basement filled with notebooks, and then somewhere in the back of it is the original print that you have hanging behind you, stuffed behind all those notebooks.
It's true. We actually have it. I think it's stored. I'll have to get that out, the print. Another one was we would always have a good time wherever we went. Ryan had interest in things, and then when he wasn't interested, it wasn't happening. And so as a parent, your job is to try to expose your children to different things. And sometimes people do it they find a device in order to lure the child into trying something new. And Godzilla was a great way to do it. I remember Ryan would not think much about playing in a swimming pool and splashing around until I began pretending I was, what was the name of the rose monster, Ryan?
Violante.
Yes. Yeah, right. Violante. And Ryan would be Godzilla, and I would be Violante with my claws coming through the water to grab him, and he would blast it with his radiation breath. And so we had many moments where it was pivoting the whole event around Godzilla, whether it fit or not, that got Ryan into it and got him to enjoy it.
That seems like my nephew. He's a few years younger, so he hasn't quite hit like monsters yet, but like you pretend anything is a dump truck or an excavator and he is there to play and go along with it. But it's good to know that method just sticks in the long run too. You just keep translating it.
Everywhere we went on vacation, I would ask my dad to go to some store in the city so we could look for Godzilla stuff at the store, comics or toys or whatever.
And this is a little bittersweet, but now when I go to stores, no matter where I go in the world, if I look for Godzilla stuff, and sometimes I'll tell Ryan, "Oh, Ryan, I found this new series of Godzilla figures," and he'll say, "No, I don't think so," and I've never gotten over that passion. Even though as he grows up, he has somewhat, and I don't think I ever will. I think I'll look for Godzilla figures no matter what, and then tell him about it, hoping he'll want me to buy him one.
I don't know. He might be over the passion, but he is running an entire Godzilla series podcast, so it like balances itself out in other ways. I think the energy is still being put into the world, just in a slightly different way.
Thank you for sharing those memories. I always cherish those too. I assume, unlike most guests, you don't have anything to promote.
No, I like to put a pitch in for my son with a wonderful podcast with 2 wonderful stars on it. So that I'll pitch that. Except it doesn't help to pitch it here. Except I think your show's amazing. So that's what I'll say.
All right. If this is your first episode and you hated it, my dad says try it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. But seriously, if you are a fan, or if this is your first one and you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you shared it with someone else, someone who might love Godzilla or just weird movies. Or this was a relatively warm and dry episode, but sometimes we get
straight up cruel.
Sometimes we're funny. So if you enjoy a good comedy movie podcast, or if your friend does, tell them about us, and share our social media posts, or follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you like to listen to your podcasts that way. And overall, just any way you can tell people about us or share our stuff, or please leave an Apple Podcasts review. You can subscribe to us on Spotify. So next time, we're going to talk about the new Godzilla anime series that's on Netflix.
Excuse me?
Yeah, wait, Sam, did you not know this?
Is there actually?
Yeah.
No. Oh, man.
Sam, all of season 1. It's not a movie. It's all of season 1.
There's a whole season. No, guys.
Yep. 13 episodes.
Oh, man.
Wait, how many?
13.
How long are the episodes?
Half hour.
That's like 6 movies. That's not true. That's not 6 movies. It's like 4 movies.
I know, but I don't want to stretch it out either. So we're doing them all at once.
Listen to this, Sam. Rotten Tomatoes, 65% rating. Okay, so we know what we're getting into.
Ooh.
That's technically still fresh.
But not certified fresh.
That'll be the next one, probably. Sometimes we change it up. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.
You better start watching now, because you got 13 episodes. So.
That's right. Get started. Godzillavangelists is produced by me, Ryan Sargent, with support from my friends Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. This episode was edited by the ever-capable Julia Waldman. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the talented artists who made the movies that we talked about today. Godzillavangelists is a satirical, critical work, not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at godzillavangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at GodzillaVangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us again next time. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.